The splash cut through the music like a gunshot. Water exploded upward in a violent arc, swallowing the small body before anyone could process what they were seeing. Arms flailed. Legs kicked against the weight of soaked fabric dragging downward. Noel surfaced, gasping, choking, eyes wide with terror. His thin frame struggled against shoes filling with water, pulling him under like stones tied to his ankles. His hands slapped the surface, reaching for anything solid, finding only more water. Above him, the laughter started. "Hi friend, before we continue the story, kindly tell us where are you watching from? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that inspire. Because the next one might change how you see the world. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Your story matters too." Phones lifted into the air. Cameras angled downward. Fingers tapped screens to capture the moment. "Did you get that?" someone shouted, voice drunk with amusement. The man who pushed him stood at the pool's edge, bent over with laughter so violent it shook his shoulders. His expensive watch caught the light as he wiped tears from his eyes. His wife stood beside him, her laugh sharp and performative, cutting through the night air like broken glass. People clapped. Someone whistled. Another voice yelled, "Do it again." Noel finally grabbed the pool's edge, pulling himself up with arms that trembled. Water poured from his clothes in streams. His worn sneakers squelched against the concrete as he hauled himself out, collapsing onto his knees. The man who pushed him straightened up, still grinning, still playing to the crowd. "Relax," he said, voice booming with false warmth. "It's just a joke. Builds character." His wife laughed again, louder this time, as if volume could prove she agreed. Noel knelt there, dripping, shaking, humiliation burning hotter than the cold soaking through his skin. No one moved to help him. No one asked if he was okay. They just kept recording. Then the laughter began to fade. Not because anyone felt guilty. But because something in the air had shifted. Footsteps approached from somewhere behind the crowd, slow, deliberate, unhurried. People turned. The music seemed quieter now. A tall figure moved through the guests, and bodies stepped aside without anyone telling them to. The man didn't shout. Didn't run. Just walked. Straight toward the boy still kneeling by the pool. Noel was 9 years old and invisible. That's what happened when you wore clothes washed so many times the fabric felt like paper. When your sneakers had holes in the soles covered with cardboard. When adults looked past you like you were furniture they'd forgotten to move. He stood near the edge of the pool because his mother told him to stay out of the way. She worked for the catering company. Brought him along because childcare fell through and missing this shift meant missing rent. She gave him one instruction: stay quiet, stay still, don't touch anything. Noel obeyed. He gripped a paper cup filled with lemonade someone handed him without looking at his face. Watched the water ripple under colored lights. Listened to conversations he didn't understand, words like liquidity and valuations and exits that meant nothing to him. The adults laughed in a way that sounded expensive. Glasses clinked. Cameras flashed. Everyone moved like they owned the ground they stood on. No one saw him. Not until the woman with the tight smile noticed him standing alone near the water. She leaned toward the man beside her, lips barely moving, words sharp enough to cut. "Why is that boy just standing there?" Her tone wasn't cruel. Just dismissive. Like he was a stain on an otherwise flawless evening. The man followed her gaze. His mouth curved into something that looked like a smile but felt like a weapon. "Probably scared," he said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Doesn't belong in places like this." The woman chuckled. Not because it was funny. Because he expected her to. Noel heard every word. He didn't cry. Didn't move. Just tightened his grip on the cup and stared at the water like it might swallow him before the humiliation could. Then he felt hands on his back. Strong. Sudden. Violent. And then he was falling. Now he knelt on the concrete, soaked and shaking, while the crowd recorded his humiliation for entertainment. But through the ringing in his ears and the burn in his chest, he noticed something. One person in the crowd wasn't laughing. Dante Vale believed money proved everything. That you were smarter. Stronger. Better. That the world bent around you because you'd earned the right to shape it. He was a tech billionaire, one of those names that appeared in headlines about innovation and disruption. His companies stretched across 3 states. His investments touched startups that would either explode or collapse, and he always knew which ones would survive because he always bet right. Or so he told himself. Tonight was his birthday. 42 years old. 200 guests. A gated estate just outside the city where every detail screamed success. He loved an audience. Loved being the center. Loved the way people leaned in when he spoke, laughed when he made a joke, agreed when he stated an opinion as fact. He'd been drinking since the afternoon. Not enough to stumble. Just enough to feel invincible. His wife, Shayla, stood beside him in a dress that cost more than most people's rent. She smiled often, but the smile never reached her eyes. She'd learned early in their marriage that peace meant silence. That disagreeing with Dante in public came with consequences she couldn't afford. She'd been different once. Sharp. Confident. Unafraid to speak her mind. But years of cold silences and public embarrassments had taught her to manage appearances instead of expressing opinions. When she pointed out the boy standing awkwardly near the pool, it wasn't cruelty. It was deflection. A way to redirect Dante's attention before he found something else to criticize. But Dante saw opportunity. A chance to entertain. To prove he could command the room with a single gesture. "Hey," he called out, voice cutting through the music. "Let's loosen things up." Heads turned. Phones lifted. Shayla's laugh caught in her throat. She knew what was coming. Could have stopped it with a single word. She stayed silent. Dante stepped behind the boy, placed both hands on his thin back, and shoved. Hard. The splash was immediate. The laughter exploded. For 5 glorious seconds, Dante felt like the most powerful man alive. Then the energy in the crowd shifted. People stopped looking at him. Started looking past him. At someone walking through the guests with a presence that made bodies move aside without command. Dante frowned. Turned. And for the first time that night, felt his control slip. The older man moved like he had all the time in the world. No rush. No panic. No visible anger. He wore simple clothes, dark pants, a button-down shirt with no designer label, no jewelry catching the light. Nothing about him screamed wealth. But people moved. Stepped aside without thinking. Created a path without being asked. He reached the pool's edge and knelt beside Noel, who still dripped water onto the concrete, still shook from cold and humiliation. The man removed his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and draped it over the boy's shoulders. "Are you hurt?" he asked quietly. His voice was calm. Steady. The kind of voice that made you believe everything would be okay. Noel shook his head. Tears clung to his lashes but refused to fall. Behind them, Dante scoffed. "Sir, it was harmless fun," he said, still performing for the crowd. "You people are too sensitive." The man didn't respond. Didn't even turn around. Just reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Dante laughed, nervous now, but still trying to hold the room. "Who are you calling?" he asked, louder this time. The man didn't answer. He tapped the screen. Held the phone to his ear. And when he spoke, his voice remained calm. Too calm. "Yes," he said evenly. "I need legal counsel tonight." Dante's smile faltered. The crowd went quiet. The man ended the call. Made another. Pull our position, the man said into the phone. Effective immediately. Dante's laugh came out strangled. Position in what? The man's tone didn't shift. Still calm. Still precise. All holdings. All agreements. I want documentation by morning. Whispers began spreading through the crowd like fire catching dry grass. Shayla grabbed Dante's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. Dante. She whispered, voice tight with something that might have been fear. But Dante waved her off, still trying to salvage control. This guy's insane, he said to the crowd, forcing a grin. Someone get security. No one moved. A woman standing near the pool stiffened. Her eyes locked on the older man's face like she'd just seen something impossible. Wait, she breathed. That's Khalil Cross. The name hit the air like a bomb. Phones came out again. Not to record this time. To search. Fingers flew across screens. Names typed. Pages loaded. Search results appeared. Khalil Cross, net worth, $4.70 billion ***. Cross Ventures, early backer of 200-plus tech startups ***. The silent billionaire, why no one knows his face ***. Articles loaded. Photos appeared. Financial reports. Congressional testimony. Interviews with founders who credited him with saving their companies when no one else believed. One by one, faces around the pool went pale. Shayla's breath caught in her chest. She recognized the name now. Everyone in their circle did, even if they'd never seen his face. Khalil Cross was a legend. Not the kind who chased headlines. The kind who shaped entire industries from behind closed doors. He'd built his fortune in the 80s and 90s through venture capital, finding companies when they were nothing, betting on founders everyone else ignored, walking away quietly once they succeeded. He didn't do interviews. Didn't attend galas unless he had to. Didn't care about being photographed. Which is why no one at this party had recognized him. Until now. Dante stared at his phone, scrolling frantically, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. That's impossible, he stammered. He's just some random old man. Khalil finally turned. His voice remained calm. Even. Unbothered by the chaos unfolding around him. I am Noel's grandfather, he said. The crowd went silent. And I am the majority backer behind Cross Meridian Fund. Dante's face drained of every drop of color. Shayla's hand fell from his arm like dead weight. The fund, Khalil continued, that kept your company alive after your second year. When no other investor would touch you. Dante staggered backward. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No sound came out. Because he'd just realized something. He wasn't in control anymore. And everyone watching knew it too. Wait. Dante's voice cracked. You can't just. I can, Khalil said. And I am. Phones glowed in the darkness as guests scrolled faster, confirming what they already suspected was true. Screen after screen loaded the same information. Cross Ventures, $18 billion under management ***. Khalil Cross, the investor who built Silicon Valley without taking credit ***. Behind every unicorn, how one man changed venture capital forever ***. Photos appeared of a younger Khalil shaking hands with presidents. Sitting across from CEOs who now ran companies worth hundreds of billions. Testifying before Congress about market regulation while senators leaned forward to catch every word. Articles detailed deals that reshaped entire industries. Investments that turned nothing into empires. Founders who credited him with believing in them when the entire world said no. And underneath it all, one consistent thread: he never wanted the spotlight. Never gave interviews unless legally required. Never attended events unless absolutely necessary. Which meant most people had no idea what he looked like. Until tonight. A man near the bar dropped his glass. It shattered against the concrete, but no one noticed. Shayla stepped backward, her heel catching on the pool's edge. She stumbled, caught herself, then looked at her husband with eyes that held nothing but terror. Because she understood what Dante hadn't yet processed. Cross Meridian Fund wasn't just an investor. They were the investor. The one that came in during year 2 when Dante's company was hemorrhaging cash and every other firm had walked away. The one that structured the deal that saved everything. The one whose backing gave other investors the confidence to follow. Without them, there was no company. Without them, there was no Dante Vale. Khalil made another call, this one on speaker. "David," he said calmly. A voice answered immediately. "Yes, sir." "Pull all cross-meridian involvement from Vale Technologies." Effective immediately. Silence on the other end. "Then, Khalil, that's their primary institutional backer. If we pull out." "I know exactly what it means," Khalil said. "Do it." "Understood. I'll have the paperwork ready by morning." The line went dead. Dante's legs gave out. He sank onto a poolside chair, head dropping into his hands. Shayla grabbed his shoulder, shaking him. "Dante, fix this. Do something." But Dante couldn't do anything. Couldn't speak. Couldn't think. Could only stare at the concrete and watch his entire world collapse in real time. Someone in the crowd whispered, "The board's going to lose their minds." Another voice added, "His Series C closes next week. If Cross pulls out before then." "It won't close," someone else finished. "No one's going to touch this now." A woman pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. Bloomberg just picked it up. "It's already news." Khalil adjusted the jacket on Noel's shoulders, then stood. He didn't look at Dante. Didn't acknowledge the chaos spreading through the crowd. Just placed a gentle hand on his grandson's back. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's go home." Noel nodded, still wrapped in the jacket, still silent. They walked through the crowd. No one tried to stop them. No one said a word. Bodies parted like water. And as they disappeared into the darkness beyond the lights, Dante finally looked up. His face was pale. His hands trembled. Because he'd just realized the truth. The push hadn't ruined him. Who he'd always been had. Khalil's car pulled away from the estate at exactly 10:37. By 10:45, no one tried to stop them. No one said a word. Bodies parted like water. And as they disappeared into the darkness beyond the lights, Dante finally looked up. His face was pale. His hands trembled. Because he'd just realized the truth. The push hadn't ruined him. Who he'd always been had. Khalil's car pulled away from the estate at exactly 10:37. By 10:45, the first call came. Dante's phone lit up with a name he recognized, Marcus Chen, board member and early investor. He answered with shaking hands. "Marcus, listen. What the hell did you do?" Marcus's voice was cold. Sharp. Cross Meridian just filed withdrawal papers. It was a misunderstanding. I can explain. You pushed Khalil Cross's grandson into a pool. Marcus's words came faster now, angrier. On camera. In front of 200 people. And you think you can explain that? I didn't know who he was. That's the problem, Dante. You didn't care who he was. The line went dead. Another call came through immediately. Then another. Then 6 more at once. Lawyers. Investors. Board members. PR consultants who'd already drafted statements distancing their firms from his name. Dante tried answering. Tried explaining. Tried spinning the incident into something forgivable. But the video was already everywhere. Not the version he'd imagined. The version where a man in an expensive suit shoves a 9-year-old boy into a pool while his wife laughs and the crowd applauds. The version where Khalil Cross walks through the chaos with the calm authority of someone who doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard. The version that made Dante look exactly like what he was. A bully who thought power made him untouchable. By midnight, the headlines started dropping. Tech CEO's joke costs company its biggest backer. Billionaire humiliates child, loses everything in 48 hours. When cruelty goes viral, the fall of Dante Vale. Shayla sat across from him in their living room, phone in her lap, face drained of color. The lawyers want to talk, she said quietly. About separation. Dante looked up. What? My lawyers, she clarified. They think I should distance myself. Publicly. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Her voice was flat now. Empty. I laughed, Dante. I stood there and laughed while you humiliated a child. That video shows me laughing. You were playing along. I was complicit. She stood, smoothing her dress. And now I'm done. She walked toward the stairs. Dante called after her. Shayla, wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. I should have said something, she said. I should have stopped you. But I was too afraid of what you'd do to me later. She paused. Now I'm more afraid of what staying will cost me. She climbed the stairs without looking back. Dante sat alone in the dark, listening to his phone buzz with messages he couldn't bring himself to read. Because he already knew what they said. You're done. Sunday morning came too fast. Dante woke to 17 missed calls and 43 unread messages. The board had convened an emergency meeting. Without him. 3 members resigned before the meeting even started. Sent brief emails citing philosophical differences and misalignment of values. The remaining 5 voted unanimously. Dante Vale was removed as CEO, effective immediately. By noon, the press release went out. Vale Technologies announces leadership transition amid controversy. The wording was careful. Professional. Designed to create distance without admitting fault. But everyone understood what it meant. Dante was out. Investors who'd fought for access to his deals now refused to return calls. Partnerships dissolved overnight. Sponsorships evaporated. His PR firm dropped him via email, citing strategic misalignment. By Monday afternoon, properties were flagged for review. Accounts frozen pending investigations into financial irregularities that suddenly seemed worth examining. Tuesday brought a feature in the Wall Street Journal titled, The Invisible Line, When Ego Costs More Than Money. It detailed every misstep. Every complaint that had been quietly buried. Every employee who'd left after being humiliated in meetings. The article painted a picture of a man who believed wealth exempted him from basic human decency. And it wasn't wrong. Wednesday, Shayla's statement went public. Her lawyers released it through every major outlet. I deeply regret not intervening. I allowed fear to silence my conscience. That ends today. The internet dissected every word. Dante. I stood there and laughed while you humiliated a child. That video shows me laughing. You were playing along. I was complicit. She stood, smoothing her dress. And now I'm done. She walked toward the stairs. Dante called after her. Shayla, wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. I should have said something, she said. I should have stopped you. But I was too afraid of what you'd do to me later. She paused. Now I'm more afraid of what staying will cost me. She climbed the stairs without looking back. Dante sat alone in the dark, listening to his phone buzz with messages he couldn't bring himself to read. Because he already knew what they said. You're done. Sunday morning came too fast. Dante woke to 17 missed calls and 43 unread messages. The board had convened an emergency meeting. Without him. 3 members resigned before the meeting even started. Sent brief emails citing philosophical differences and misalignment of values. The remaining 5 voted unanimously. Dante Vale was removed as CEO, effective immediately. By noon, the press release went out. Vale Technologies announces leadership transition amid controversy. The wording was careful. Professional. Designed to create distance without admitting fault. But everyone understood what it meant. Dante was out. Investors who'd fought for access to his deals now refused to return calls. Partnerships dissolved overnight. Sponsorships evaporated. His PR firm dropped him via email, citing strategic misalignment. By Monday afternoon, properties were flagged for review. Accounts frozen pending investigations into financial irregularities that suddenly seemed worth examining. Half called her complicit. Half called her brave. Dante read it alone in his office, the one he'd been told to vacate by end of week. He tried calling Khalil. Blocked. Tried reaching David Chen at Cross Meridian. Blocked. Sent emails to board members, old friends, business partners who owed him favors. No responses. Thursday, a reporter from Bloomberg cornered him outside his building. Mr. Vale, do you have any comment on the incident? Dante stopped, exhausted, desperate for anyone to hear his side. It was just a joke, he said. The reporter's expression didn't change. Just nodded. Wrote it down. The quote appeared in every article by evening. Just a joke, Dante Vale defends actions amid company collapse, ***. The internet tore him apart all over again. By Friday, Dante Vale, who 7 days earlier had been untouchable, sat in an empty office with no company, no reputation, and no one willing to answer his calls. All because of a push. Or rather, all because of who he'd always been when he thought no one important was watching. 3 weeks later, Noel walked through a charity gala in Manhattan with his grandfather's hand on his shoulder. He wore a new suit that fit properly. Stood straighter. Smiled easier. The event was packed with people Khalil knew, investors, founders, philanthropists who'd built empires and now spent their evenings giving back. Noel stayed close, watching everything, learning. Across the ballroom, near the bar, Dante Vale stood alone. He wore a suit that didn't fit quite right anymore. Had lost weight. Lost the confidence that used to fill every room he entered. He'd come hoping to rebuild connections. Hoping someone might give him a second chance. When he saw Khalil, he froze. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away. But desperation overrode survival. He crossed the room, moving through clusters of people who deliberately turned away when they saw him coming. Mr. Cross, he said quietly. Khalil didn't stop walking. Dante followed, voice breaking. I need to apologize. Khalil kept moving toward the exit, Noel at his side. I was drunk, Dante continued, words tumbling out faster now. I wasn't thinking. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know you were his grandfather. If I'd known. That's the problem, Khalil said without turning around. Please. Dante's voice cracked. I lost everything. Khalil paused. But he still didn't look back. You didn't lose everything because of one push, he said calmly. You lost it because of who you were when you thought power protected you. Dante opened his mouth to respond. But Khalil kept walking. Kept moving toward the doors with Noel beside him. Dante stood there, frozen, watching them disappear into the crowd. Around him, conversations continued. Glasses clinked. People laughed. No one looked at him. He was invisible now. The same way Noel had been. Later that night, Khalil and Noel sat in the back of a car heading home through the city. Noel stared out the window, watching lights blur past in streams of color. "Grandpa," he said quietly. "Yes." "Why didn't you yell at him?" "At the party." Khalil smiled. "Because angry people make loud decisions. Calm people make lasting ones." Noel thought about that for a moment. He said it was just a joke. People always say that after they've been caught. Khalil turned to look at his grandson. "But here's what I want you to remember, Noel. Not about him. About you." Noel met his eyes. Being underestimated is only dangerous for the people doing the underestimating. He placed a hand on Noel's shoulder. "That man saw you standing by a pool and assumed you were powerless. Assumed no one important would care. Assumed cruelty had no consequences." "He was wrong," Noel said quietly. "He was wrong. But not because I stepped in. He was wrong because he built his entire life on a lie." "What lie?" "That power makes you untouchable." Khalil looked back out the window. Real power isn't about how many people you can control. It's about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. He paused. "And the truth is, someone is always watching." Noel nodded slowly, understanding settling in his chest like something solid and permanent. "What if you hadn't been there?" Noel asked. "What if you were just some stranger with no money, no influence, no connections?" "Then he would have gotten away with it," Khalil said honestly. "And that's the real lesson." He leaned back in his seat. Cruelty without consequences breeds more cruelty. But accountability doesn't come from wealth. It comes from choice. "So why did you do it?" "Pull the funding." Khalil was quiet for a long moment. "Because I could. And because silence would have taught you the wrong lesson." He looked at Noel again. "I didn't destroy that man's life to punish him. I did it to show you that power is only worth having if you use it to protect people who can't protect themselves." Noel smiled, small but genuine. "Thank you. You don't have to thank me. You just have to remember." The car pulled through the city streets, heading toward home. Somewhere across Manhattan, Dante Vale sat alone in a half-empty apartment, scrolling through old photos of a life that no longer existed. Wondering how a single push could cost him everything. But the answer was simple. It wasn't the push. It was who he'd always been. The cruelest people are the ones who think no one powerful is watching. But someone is always watching. And sometimes, that someone has the power to make sure cruelty doesn't go unpunished. So here's the question: how many people are walking around right now, believing their cruelty is invisible, just because no one powerful has called them out yet? Think about that. And remember. Be careful who you underestimate when you think no one important is paying attention. Because the next person you dismiss might be connected to someone who can change your entire life with a single phone call. If this story made you think twice about how you treat people, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the next story we share might change how you see the world forever. Drop a comment and tell us. Have you ever witnessed someone being cruel because they thought they'd get away with it? What happened? Your story matters too. And we'll see you in the next one. His entire life on a lie. What lie? That power makes you untouchable. Khalil looked back out the window. Real power isn't about how many people you can control. It's about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. He paused. And the truth is, someone is always watching. Noel nodded slowly, understanding settling in his chest like something solid and permanent. What if you hadn't been there? Noel asked. What if you were just some stranger with no money, no influence, no connections? Then he would have gotten away with it, Khalil said honestly. And that's the real lesson. He leaned back in his seat. Cruelty without consequences breeds more cruelty. But accountability doesn't